Wow. You know, when I watch that video, I'm reminded of how many people I owe so much. You don't stand up in an opportunity like this without having people intervene and step into your life, both as mentors, as coaches, and that's certainly why I'm standing here today. I'd be remiss if I didn't say I wouldn't be standing here tonight without my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Now, you know, I say that, and I'm going to share with you the rest of the story. Some things haven't been told. It's not all about me. I could summarize why I'm standing here with a couple of things. This will sound strange. One, divine intervention, and two, Garth Brooks. Well, it really wasn't Garth Brooks. It was a song that he recorded. Thank God for unanswered prayers. See, I graduated from Oklahoma, and it was hard for me getting out of school. In fact, and I'll tell this real quick, after my junior year, I'd had some success. I became scholastically ineligible by like that much. But I was dropped from the team and had a decision to make. My parents had never attended college. And it was either stop, pursue the career I wanted within golf, or finish. I decided to finish and to get my degree. Now, for some reason, I majored in accounting. Everybody else wasn't majoring in accounting. In fact, my golf team never majored in accounting. But I did. Now, I was about to graduate, had 3 hours left, didn't have any money, didn't know anybody in the golf business other than playing with them. And somebody said, you need to go to work for Joe Walser. He is the best, and you will learn from him, and he will help your career. So I called, got an appointment, went in to see Joe, talked to him a while, and he said, okay, I'll hire you as an assistant. And I said, by the way, Joe, I've got 3 hours left. And he said, well, here's what we'll do. This is Lake Hefner Golf Course. He said, you can close the shop every day from 12 to dark. And I was commuting from Norman. So I would go to class, commute to Lake Hefner. He said, well, you can study while you're working behind the counter. And I tried that. But you see, the only class available to me was advanced cost accounting. And the entire class were graduate students. And I had to make a B. The head of the department was teaching, and he knew what this meant. He failed the whole class the first test. And when it came time for the final, I turned in my paper, and he said, Jim, why don't you wait a minute, I'll grade it now. And I stepped aside. He motioned me up, and he said, just looked at me, kind of smiled, and he said, you graduated. Divine intervention? I think so. Because I can promise you I didn't make a B. Never saw the final, never saw the paper. During that time, I learned about the character of Joe Walser. Came in one day, was tired, walked in, and the staff is smiling, they're kind of giggling, and they're looking at me, and I said, what's going on? And somebody said, did you forget anything last night? I said, well, I don't think so. And they said, you left the door to the putting green unlocked when you left a little early. And Joe got a call and had to come out and meet the police because the police told him that people were going in and out of the door carrying merchandise out. Well, they didn't carry any merchandise out, but it wasn't quite dark, but the carts were all in. So I got behind the counter, and I'm working at the cash register. I'm looking over at the corner. Joe's in his office. He hasn't looked up, hadn't said a word. After about an hour, I couldn't stand any longer, went in, said, Joe, can I talk to you a minute? He said, sit down. I looked at him, and I said, I'm sorry, and am I fired? And Joe looked at me, and I'll never forget, and he kind of stared at me a minute. He said, well, are you going to do it again? I said, no, sir. He said, then get back to work. That's all he ever said. Until later on, he brought it up 1,000 times later. But Joe and Ernie told me one time, you have to go to New York. You have no money, you have some game, you go up there. And I was going to run a club for Terry Wilcox at Siwanoy Country Club, and they said, somebody will see you play and they will want to sponsor you. So I went up there. And in 1968, the club looked at me, and I wasn't yet a PGM member, and they said, Jim, if you will go to the Players School and get your card, we'll give you $7,000 to play the winter tour. I thought, wow. So I went to Players School, and I got a card. And came back, they're giving me $7,000. Now, for the women in the room, forgive me. But I thought, wow, what a deal. I said, I've been in love with Jeannie for a long time. I said, why don't we just get married? So at Christmas Eve, I gave her a ring and proposed to her, and she accepted. And I said, oh, I forgot to tell you, we've got to get married the first week in February. So it was Christmas Eve. And she said, why? I said, well, we're going on our honeymoon to the Latin American tour. We went to the Latin American tour, 90% men, and the tournament was played in Bogota, Colombia, Maracaibo, Venezuela, and Panama. Now think about those countries today. So we get to Bogota as the first one. We go up, we open the door to our room, and there's 2 twin beds bolted on the floor at opposite ends of the room. Jeannie starts crying. I run to the director of the tournament. They gave up their room, and we had to wait. Now, Jeannie had been told, be careful what you eat. She thought everything looked good, so she ate a salad. And she immediately had Montezuma's revenge. This is the first week we're on the tour. We completed the tour, flew back to Miami. She went home, and I played 2 more tournaments. Now, I know there's guys are saying, you stupid, and women are saying, oh, who is this guy? We've been married 50 years this year. We have 3 children and 8 grandchildren. You saw Justin and Jeannie come in. Our other daughter is in Florida. A couple of months ago, we lost a granddaughter, 10 years old, so she's there. She would be here. But that, 50 years later, we're still here. This is our 50th year. But what really is the rest of the story, and I think this is pertinent to Oklahoma. I was at the Trails Golf Club. Some unexpected event occurred, and I'm looking for a job. Joe and Ernie called me and said, Jim, don't worry, we'll have a job for you. And also got a call from the PGA. And they said, Jim, would you be interested in coming to Florida, taking over the tournament department and reorganize the tournaments? Jeannie and I talked it over and said, man, that's a risk. Because we didn't know what was happening. PGA only had 62 employees back in those days. So we decided to go. Took a 50% cut in pay, sold our house during the downtime of the oil boom, and went to Florida. Gina was dating the quarterback on the football team in high school and was on the Palm squad, and we moved all of them. The only one that was happy was Justin. He said, I'm going where I can wear shorts every day, count me in. He was 12. But what really is the rest of the story, that's 33 years ago we left Oklahoma. But Oklahoma never left us. Because what happened when I went to the PGA, first thing I looked at is the Ryder Cup was scheduled to be played in Palm Springs, California. And it was scheduled to be played in September. And I looked at it and said, well, September, it's 110 degrees in Palm Springs, and there's no one there. They don't oversee the greens till December and November. So I flew out to see Joe. And I had lived with him for a while. The kids were on our wedding. I sat down and I said, Joe, we can't play the Ryder Cup here. And I explained to him, I said, by the way, the teams fly the Concorde now. And the Concorde can't fly across the U.S. It's supersonic. So it will have to go to the North Pole and come down, go subsonic when it gets to the border, and it doesn't have enough gas to get to Palm Springs. So he said, well, Jim, what do you want to do? I said, we'd like you to release us from the agreement. Joe looked at me and he said, "Pards? I don't think we can do that." But he did. He immediately said, "There is a course that we just took over. There's an island, and we're going to develop a resort at Kiowa Island, and Pete Dye is going to build a great golf course on the ocean." Now, they haven't even started yet. And I said, "Okay, what are you going to do? You're going to play in Palm Springs in September." So went down. Pete built the golf course. It was outstanding. Same time, 1988, we're playing Awtrey PGA Championship. Successful championship. Ernie and Joe sat down that day and said, "Jim, this has been a great tournament. We'll give you $1 million to have another one." Well, we were losing $2 million a year, so we thought that's a good deal. So we scheduled in 1994. Now, immediately after this, 1988, we're at the Belfry in 1989. Joe's there, the mayor of Charleston, and I see everybody at the TV, and they're all huddled around, and I hear them whisper, and I walked up and said, "What's going on?" And they said, "Hurricane Hugo is hitting Kiowa head on." It is massive. And it just wiped out Kiowa Island and most of Charleston. We got back, sent Kerry over. I said, "Kerry, go look at it." And he called me and said, "Jim, it's the matchsticks. It's all torn up." Pete Dye, as only Pete would do, said, "Jim, I'll have that golf course back." This is in September of '89. We're going to play there in '91. Pete got permission from the Corps of Engineers some way, and they said, "You can rebuild the dune lines." Well, you give Pete Dye a big dozer and rebuild the dune lines. He built it far better than it was when it started. Now, we come to '91, and nobody had played Kiowa Island. Nobody played the Dye course, the ocean course. It's in April, we're at Augusta, and the course is not finished yet. The clubhouse is not built. The greens aren't puttable. And Dave Stockton says, "Jim, I want to take some players and we want to go up to Kiowa and play." I said, "Dave, no, you can't do that. The greens aren't puttable. Players go up there and see that. The media is going to find out and it'll be a disaster." He said, "Well, I don't care. I'm going to take them up there." So Tom Kite drives a Masters Cadillac all the way to Kiowa Island, drives out to where the clubhouse is going to be built, hadn't been built yet, and buries that Cadillac up to the door frame. And they had to get a D9 in there to pull it out. Players grabbed some beer, got on the carts in their shorts, went out and had a ball. Media never knew. And nobody has said a word. Now think about that modern day today. So we get there, the war by the shore, and it really launches the Ryder Cup for America. It's in 1991. Now, ironically, in 1991, the RTC took down Landmark. That was the last event of where they were intact. Now, you think about Joe and Ernie saying, "Jim, don't worry. We'll have you a job." And then in '91, Landmark's going down, the very job and the very company that I really wanted to work for. It was a sad time. When you look up, unanswered prayers. Now, in 1990, you saw in the film what happened. At that point, clubs had to make a decision because corporate America was being challenged. Corporate CEOs were asked, "What club do you belong to? Do they have women members? Do they have African-American members?" Everybody had to re-examine what they were doing. So our policy was, if you don't have African-American and you don't have women, you need to release the tournament. So I met with all the tournament directors, and they got a choice. So we'll be there, but so will everybody else in the world that wants to make an issue. Awtrey's just been killed by the RTC, and Southern Hills reached out and said, "We will host the tournament." Southern Hills had not had a major championship in 12 years. Why? I don't know at that point. Obviously, we said yes. And the tournament was moved from Awtrey to Southern Hills. And Southern Hills in 1994 was Arnold Palmer's last PGA Championship to play in. he called me, right before, and he said, Jim, this is going to be my last tournament, last PGA Championship to play in. He said, Arnold, we've been giving you a lifetime exemption because the only major he didn't win is a PGA. And right here at Southern Hills, coming up the 18th hole with Dave Stockton beat him, or he would have had a Grand Slam as well. So he said, I don't want to take a spot from a young player. This is Arnold. That's just the man he was. I said, Arnold, we've given you a lifetime exemption. He said, but I don't want to take a spot. I said, how about if we add you onto the field so you never take a spot away? And he said, Jim, there comes a time, and this is my time. Try to get Dave Stockton to come back and reconstruct coming up the 18th hole on Friday night on national television, Arnold's last time. Dave had prior commitment. But during that week, Arnold Palmer received the Distinguished Service Award by the PGA. And in the next 13 years, Southern Hills would have 3 majors, 2 tour championships, so they had 5 events in 13 years. As I stand here with you tonight, I look at that period of 1986 to 1994, and Oklahoma dramatically changed the face of golf, both in Oklahoma and around the world. Landmark goes down, all those courses come, all the golf professionals leaving, the tour is changing, and all those courses with new ownership. Later on, the Supreme Court would determine that the government, there had never been a time when the government had treated a citizen so poorly, but by that time it was too late. But when you look at that era and that time, I am so proud to stand here tonight knowing that Everett's here is maintaining Awtrey the way it's always been and should be. And I'm standing here at Southern Hills, which stepped in and created such a great time for the PGA of America, the PGA Championship, and got back in that rotation, and in my opinion, will be hosting tournaments for as long as they want to, because there's not a better facility. So to Everett, thank you for what you're doing for golf and maintaining that. For everyone in the room, there's probably all of this, half the room, I owe a thank you. You know who you are, and I'll just say thank you one more time. Tonight being here is very special to me. Never dreamed of it. Coming from small town in Oklahoma, there were only 2 kids playing when I started, and now kids are playing all over the world. So I want to thank you. I want to thank the committee. I want to remember what Melissa said about that. I coached 5 years, and I have, I think, 7 players or so in the room that played on that team, and 44 years later, we are close friends, see each other, and they're here tonight, and I want to thank them. But that is golf, and I am blessed to be here, and it truly was divine intervention and unanswered prayers. But thank you for this opportunity and this privilege.